Good morning again. Thank you, Director Kavanaugh. So I'd like to present the monitoring report for SD2 competitive rates. And the directive actually, go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so the directive is derived from the board directives. It gives us a rate target of 20% below the West, North, Central, Regional, and it's based on average system pricing. Has 6 principles in the SD, and the first one is to maintain fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory rates. The second one is equitable assignment of costs across and within customer classes. Pursue rate process and structure changes to reflect the cost of energy when it is used. Offer flexibility and options. Be simple and easy to understand, and to encourage demand side and energy efficiency. So the rate target is based on the Energy Information Administration, the West North Central region, and the states that are included that are North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska. This happens to be the same region and the same metric that the rating agencies specify and hold us to when we go in for ratings. This slide shows you the rate, our history of our rates. So to explain this slide, we start at 0%. Down the left-hand side is how far below the regional average our rates are. We're showing 1995 to 2016 actuals and then 2017 projection. And then the right axis is our off-system power prices, megawatts per hour. So on the graph, you'll see a brown line, which looks kind of orange there. And that's how far below OPPD's rates are below that regional average for each one of those years. The blue line we've put in is our off-system sales price, and you can see there's some correlation between those two, or historically there has been. We started in 1995 at 10.5% below the regional average. The lowest we've achieved is 14%, and that was in 2008. And then our rates have escalated since then. And up at the top, I put in a few of the factors that have caused the escalation in those rates over time. So in 2007, we had started financing the construction of the Nebraska City 2 unit. And so we had principal and interest payments that needed to be covered by rates. And then the next thing that happened was the recession came in, which did 2 things. It affected the interest rates that we were getting to finance that NC2 project, as well as the funding of major liabilities, so OPEB, the retirement plan, and then the decommissioning funds. The next item that happened was coal transportation contracts, and in 2009 we had a very large escalation in those transportation contracts for coal. So that caused a very large increase in the FPPA rate at that time. And then the last contributing item was the 2011 flood, which all of you know affected the operations at Fort Calhoun, and then we ended up going into NRC oversight 0350, which caused additional expenditures. So that's kind of the reasons for the escalation. The good news in this, if you go out to 2016, based on the preliminary EIA data, and that will be finalized later this summer, last year we ended the year at 6.6 below the regional average. Our projection at the end of 2017 is to be 12.9 below the regional average. Now the six principles in this SD, the first, I'm going to cover these 2 at a time. The first one is maintain fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory rates, and equitable assignment of costs across and within customer classes. To support those 2, we have rate classes that are based on customer usage characteristics. We use industry standard cost of service principles to allocate costs across all of those customer classes. The rate design strives to align revenues with our fixed and variable costs. And then the entire process is reviewed by an independent third party, which works for the board, and that is currently the Brattle Group. Principles 3 and 4 are to pursue the rate process and structure changes to reflect the cost of energy when it is used and to offer flexibility and options. Now, advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI, is really required to fully implement rates that would be based on time that the customers use energy. So the steps we have taken is we are currently underway with an AMI pilot program, and my rates group is also monitoring rate structures in areas where AMI has been fully deployed. So we understand all of the options people are using and all of the positive and negative things about those rates.
When will we hear about that rate, the pilot program for the AMI?
Probably later this fall when we have some operationals. As I reported last month, is that we're nearing the finalization of all the construction of that, and we'll give Mo and his team an opportunity to kind of do some of the evaluations of that on the distribution automation initiative. It's a small AMI, 12 meters or something like that.
Yeah, just about
It's in Northeast Omaha.
Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes, somewhere between Maple, Ida, 29th to maybe 58.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So once we get some operational data and just get a sense of what that looks like, we'll come back and give an update to the board.
As far as timing, we wouldn't expect to put any AMI in for 2018 yet.
I
Because
think
we'd have to put the infrastructure in first and everything that costs in.
correct. I think what you may see is that with some of the experience that we may see with the pilot and with some of the work our customer experience team is doing and our integrated energy marketplace team is doing, you may see a recommendation come in 18 for what that rollout may look like. That would be ours, and then how we would be in a position to finance that or not finance that, what would the rate impact be, all those pieces to it. That would be our plan probably.
Yeah, exactly. Once we go through the evaluation, and we'll feed that into the integrated.
Resource.
Right.
So 18 would be a working year for this, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we really wanted to have a year experience from our own operational side, and to really understand the impacts to us and the technical and the talent needs that go along with it for us to begin to think about what that rollout is. And that rollout, is potentially in the $100 million range potentially, so it's pretty significant. So as we begin to think about what that looks like, because it's just not the meter pieces, it's the distribution automation components that go along with that and all the infrastructure, the communication infrastructure. I know a little bit out of my boundary of expertise right now.
You're
So I'm
doing
gonna get
great.
right back into it. So we'll get back to the board probably later this fall with an update about what we've done, where we are, what we're seeing, and then our intent is, as our strategic initiative teams have gone through their work, is to come back to the board with probably some recommendations and some timelines.
Then you see the plasticity with this, because this would be great for flexibility to have the AMI. At the same time, it's expensive.
That's right. Yeah, to look at the value. It's just too early to make any decisions.
It's a longer conversation.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. So as an example of flexibility and options, Rate 261 was designed and approved by you, the board, in January of 17. It was a key element in attracting new development as well as discussions on expansions within our current customer base. It's been a major item of discussions in industrial articles as well as forums, and it creates a solution to meet corporate customer renewable objectives. It's consistent with the process, with the principles of being equitable assignment of cost and full recovery from those customer classes, and then offers flexibility and options. So the last two principles are to be simple and easy to understand and encourage demand reduction and energy efficiency. To support those principles, all of our rates are available on our website. 52% of our annual average peak demand is under tariff with demand charges. Curtailable and time of use rates are available to those demand customers. And then the demand reduction and energy efficiency are encouraged through offerings of other products and services. The recommendation of management is the Public Information Committee has reviewed and accepted the monitoring report of SD2 and recommends that the board find OPPD to be sufficiently and compliant with board policy SD2. And then there are no recommended changes by management to this policy at this time.
As chairman of the board, as a chairman of the committee, I feel confident with compliance.
Sure, I have several comments. So I asked, and thank you, this goes back to the January discussion that I had when I was first looking at strategic directives. And remember in January, my first time here, we didn't even know which committees we were on. So, my question about comparing where our rates are compared to the region that we're comparing it to. From an engineering standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. 70% of the energy, 75%, depending on which utility you are, is based on buildings. And so the weather impact on buildings is a major driver of the energy use. Therefore, it seems likely or logical to me to compare ourselves against buildings not in Alaska, not in Hawaii, but with those areas that have the same climate areas. And so that's why I sent this around. Now, I understand this may not be the time to talk about this change, and so in July, I guess this is where this would go.
Yeah, this is the compliance, right? Just policy.
Yeah, so I recognize that, but I'm raising the issue because I want to make sure that we talk about it, July. About this, though, I'm curious. Many of the strategic directives do have more than one subcommittee working, and so I'm wondering why the finance committee, since we're talking about cost of service, since we're talking about a lot of finances related to this, why the finance subcommittee isn't also an approver of this.
We have quite a few that overlap.
So-
Most of them is the committee, typically one committee has the SD that they bring to the full board for review. Now, the SDs may have, well, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll have an order in the committee that then comes back. Now, the SDs do impact different kind of pieces to that, right? So, from a customer experience or from a customer sat perspective, from rates to the finance side on competitive rates to, a number of different things. So, they all kind of, individual issue may tie in different committees of the board, but one committee brings the SDs typically back to the board for approval and discussion and comment.
So I would add to that, as far as working on resolutions or proposals for this,
Sure.
it's very cross-functional. It's all the way from, we're working with the customer group and the customer representatives to understand what customers want, bounce ideas off of them, and then the finance group is actually one that puts the corporate operating plan together. Separate group in finance does the rate design, and so there's a coordination of all of those people before we would use the stakeholder process in that group. And sometimes Mo's group gets heavily involved in where cost allocations go. So it really is a cross-functional effort to try to design the rates and make sure we're doing it appropriately.
So, revisions that are needed, areas where we compare would be one that I would encourage us to discuss and evaluate. Fairness, our definition of fairness is?
That language is just the state statute, and so we try to provide the lowest cost, most reliable.
And I've asked the author of those if he would do us the favor of comparing our service area to nearby states. He's overwhelmed and overworked, as are we all. But I think sometime we will see that. And there's nothing that would prevent us from developing our own energy burden comparison to other states in the region, other utilities that we like to compare ourselves against. And I think that's another measure of fairness that we might want to at least look at.
So that is an issue for this particular.
So revision.
I think it's,
you know, we can talk about it, it's why we're having a discussion. There are a lot of reasons why we can't exist these prior years, but we got input anyway, so.
Yeah, I got one more.
So I would say to that, when we did do the rate restructuring, we did work closely with Julie and Lisa's group and did do analysis, and that's out of that came the low income, low usage credit that we designed because we were looking at affordability. So we have done some work around that.
Back here, the flexibility and options.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Always good to have institutional memory, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to figure out what kind of measure we have to show that we're encouraging energy efficiency. Is there any kind of outcome that we can show that we've been successful?
Yeah, actually, what we'll show is typically what Julie has provided over the course of, I think it was just a couple months ago, February maybe? The sustainability, the DSM emissions. That was the last time, so that's coming up. So it'll be coming up shortly here on kind of what our additional work we've had on both the variety of different DSM and energy efficiency programs that we put together. So you'll see some of that progress on that.
showing published level. We publish a
Here's two
pamphlet.
things. I'm sorry.
We publish a pamphlet for that too, right?
We don't publish the pamphlet anymore.
My reward.
And just to put a fine point on it, there is a difference between DSM and energy efficiency. So it's the energy efficiency that was key and the measures that we have on that.
We talk about energy efficiency for just average businesses, ratepayers, what are you talking about?
Everybody,
We do hundreds and hundreds of things to promote that. I don't say, are you talking about how we measure it? Those hundreds of things.
are we successful in our encouraging? Do people adopt? Are they showing?
It's difficult to measure. That's like kind of individual loss.
Well, I think we're certainly seeing it in our load forecast, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So
We see it in that, we see it in our, I guess, the success of our rebate programs, that we have available to customers.
For years, we would see gradual increase in demand. And then kind of level off. It is real steady growth for years. Then it kind of level off. One of the reasons for the problem is conservation.
Yeah, we certainly see it. Some of the meter studies that we do on customers, we certainly see that very clearly.
Yes.
Certainly new homes are lower energy or higher energy efficient than newer homes of 10 years ago, no doubt about it. And the retrofits that are occurring on appliances, we see that in our metered studies that we do, on test meters that we have throughout our district, that we test and see that level of energy efficiency going. Some of that has to do with our appliance recycling program, some of the work we've done historically, some of the new things that we've done on DSM and on energy efficiency, kind of the, I want to call it the step up program, but that's not right.
The
It's
Smart Steps.
Smart
the
Step
Smart
program,
Steps
thank you.
program that we do, that's probably one that struggles, that where we're encouraging it, but we're not seeing people, let us come into there.
So two things, I guess, about energy efficiency. David Brock, the director of the Nebraska Energy Office, disagrees with the statement, but it's still out there on the Energy Information Administration site. While we have low energy costs, we have high energy consumption for the state. So it makes sense. You sell something that's cheap, people will buy it. But then that also leads to this energy burden issue. If we have a high level of consumption, which then eats up a lot of local income. So one of the things that I would encourage OPPD to do is when we're comparing ourselves to the best in class, or when we're comparing ourselves how are we comparing with our energy efficiency programs? Here's my question. So it's a larger issue, but this is where it comes up. And that's where the last thing. When we talk about rate flexibility, you talk about rate 261 down, and yet we don't have any customers who can access that rate. When we first passed it, and Tim, and I talked at that point in time, I said, wow, this is wonderful, it's great, it's fantastic. How can we tweak rate 261 down to serve other areas? I know you guys are working. Yep. And so, any revisions needed, then I think this is an opportunity to talk about it. So that's right.
No, so it is probably time to talk about it, just at some point. I think this strategic directives, that we had a broad-based goals, and then there's fine-tuning that management, the company does. So on 6 versus encouraging demand reduction and energy efficiency, are we making enough steps? What are the more things that we're providing that leadership and those things? I think a lot of energy efficiency programs and reduction, we're doing some, maybe not as much as you want. But I don't want to get discouraged, but also we got to look at the majority of what the board thinks is proper, and not just go on one thing because you don't feel good with that. So I'll give you a heads up. I don't mean to shoot you down completely, but also I do want to say, I think for everybody, you got to get a majority of the board to go change these things. So we're going to be talking about this later in the governance process and some of those things. But I know you brought this up a couple times, Director. Like I say, to keep going there, it is fine because it's very important to you. I get that. I'm just saying, when we look at these things, there's so many factors to measure every little thing we do. Sometimes it's a broad focus. Are we doing, it's kind of the smell test, I guess. Are we doing a lot? I think we're the leader of the state doing this. But I throw that out there not to be argumentative, just to kind of make sure we don't.
Yeah, we all, and I appreciate that we all have different views. I just talked with a recent new resident to Omaha who told me about when he bought his house over in eastern Iowa. A line came in and I said, hey, I just saw that you bought a new house. Can we do an energy assessment at your house? Sure, we will. Within minutes of showing up at the house, they were changing out the thermostat. They were insulating the water heater. They changed the shower head because there's an energy component to water. And they added insulation in the attic. So that's an energy efficiency program that I think is
There's hundreds of those out there though, for the individual ratepayer consumer to go use. We don't,
but that was free, provided by the utility.
We also have that similar start program.
Also free to
So, I think one thing that we need to continue to keep in mind is a very unique company that tries to sell its product to make money and discourages people from buying it. I don't know of any other company that does that.
My dad was a dentist.
So if McDonald's put a sign out and said, it's more efficient to eat Wendy's, that would be.
Don't eat 2 hamburgers with that, for example.
My point is that it is a very unique situation. We want to encourage people as much as possible to be efficient. But we also have to remember that every company, if it's going to operate, has to operate at a profit. And one of the things we like to do is not tap that rate increase thing to do that. Now, I realize some of you may think and feel that efficiency and more use of energy that's produced from wind and solar and so forth is worth having higher rates. But when I talk to people on the street, happen to mention that has something to do with OPPD, nobody says to me, oh boy, I hope we're getting more efficient energy. But everybody says to me, keep the rates down without it.
Well, so let me
chime in a little bit if I can.
I understand your views, and I
Well,
understand
let
the
me-
contrary to what I'm saying.
Yeah, so let me just respond to that. I think you're right. Like, nobody wants to pay more for the electricity that they're using on a monthly basis. But for me, it's about what are you paying per month, not what are you paying per kilowatt hour. That to me is, I think, the more important measure when we look at whether or not we're providing good service to people. Is that honestly, I wouldn't care what the cost per kilowatt hour is if my cost per month is $50 as opposed to $150. So I think what they're really telling you is, I don't want to pay a lot. They don't care what the cost per kilowatt hour is, and that's where I think these energy efficiency programs for people are important. I just came off. I mean, Rick and I just got done running a campaign where we talked to a lot of people. So we had on the doorstep conversations with people about OPPD. Very intimate, and we weren't directing them any, or at least I wasn't. I can't speak for you.
I'm very good.
Yeah. But, you know, the question that I was asking was, what do you think about OPPD? What do you think is going wrong? What do you think needs to be fixed? And energy efficiency came up consistently and often for people I was talking to. And it's not unique to Dems or Rs or Ns. Everybody was interested in energy efficiency opportunities. I haven't seen, we haven't been on the board long enough to have gone through the experience of seeing the July strategic directive. So that's, sorry, when I look at this, I too think that the energy efficiency side of this is lacking. I think there's a big opportunity for us to do, and part of that might be just my ignorance about the breadth of things that we do. I mean, our mission is to provide services, not to provide electricity. Our mission is to provide these energy services. So that incorporates a lot of things, and one of those things is, how can we help our customers pay less? And yes, it's a unique business model, but it's also what our customer owners are asking.
I want to add one more thing that, and actually Julie Comstock has been working with this, and she did mention that the Smart Steps program, in my area, which is southeast Omaha, energy burden is a big problem. And that's where, when we did the rate restructuring and everything, we implemented the Smart Steps and everything. And Julie has a program of Smart Steps that if we see somebody come in that has trouble, I get phone calls from Julie or whatever saying, this person's having trouble paying their bill and everything. We want to go in there, we want to look at it, we want to help as far as more energy efficiency and everything. A lot of times the people won't let them in, which is interesting. You know, their rates are going up and they don't let them inside. But I think maybe Julie can talk a little bit about an energy burden and Smart Steps. That's Julie's role, and they've done a very good job in doing that, but they're running into some headwinds. Because our priority first is not the people who could pay for the energy, you know, people out west and everything can afford energy efficiency stuff. It's people in the inner city that have problems paying the regular bills, have trouble with this, and we're going in offering to do these services free of charge. And we're doing some of that, and we're assisting with it, because that's our priority first. And
So we're re-looking at what are the hang-ups that are preventing people from wanting someone to come into their home and evaluate. And we do the same types of things through that program, as far as, you know, the shower head, the light bulbs, that type of thing. But we have to get into the home to be able to do that. But we are going to evaluate, or have been evaluating what is that hang-up.
There's, yeah, then we need to kind of keep moving on, but, part of that, several of us campaigned a lot too, to get on this board. I know you went through, knocked on doors as well. I heard a lot about keeping rates low, and, you know, reliable, keep the lights on, keep the rates low. I heard a lot of that, and I did hear, you know, some of the energy efficiency things for sure. But I also heard too on the privacy issues. It's like the AC management program. I don't want people out there knowing what, no, don't look that up. I explained this to a lot of people. Some love it, some like, whoa. Whatever it may be, bring it and get it. But it's a good discussion. Another thing, why it's on this, and that anyone can correct me on this, but my memory was it's on the public information part because it's such a public issue. Rates are the issue. And November, when we do these in December, unfortunately, that's what people care about. Rates of reliability a lot of times. So I think that's why this ended up on
rates are
Because it does
getting,
cost, but that's why.
Yeah, rates haven't been part of finance.
you know, the corporate operating plan is, and then the rate actions are always in the bulk information side.
Yeah, that's how it's over that.
It was my 20 years.
But there's a lot of moving parts to get to this, and I agree, it's probably one of the, we put it all over OPPD, energy, you know, efficiency, renewables, and all those, so it's a good topic with that.
So, I've got a couple more comments. You want me to just talk them away until the board meeting?
Well, no, I mean, let's go a little bit here.
I like this.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
So, just a couple, I'll try to be quick.
It's hard to be quick on this. 'Cause
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, this is important, people, right? This is the strategic directive that I think almost everything we do comes back. I just pulled up our corporate scorecard, and this is the only one, actually, there might be another one that is showing yellow for this year, and it was red last year. So it's just when, and this goes back to the question that I asked in our pre-committee meeting about the definition of what it means to be sufficient and compliant. So to me, it's a really simple litmus test to kind of give me a sense for whether or not everything is green except this one. Why is that? So that's a concern that I have. This is potentially maybe a broader issue, but especially for a strategic directive that is as important as this one, I don't feel like I'm getting the full depth of information or really making a good call on this in the span of, 6 slides. I mean, we talked about one rate, 261M, which is a really new one. It's a great one, but it's not probably the one that people talk with me the most about. The one that I continue to hear a lot about are rates related to how OPPD treats distributed generation, solar on residential, that kind of stuff. And I get a lot of negative comments on that. So when I think about whether or not we're providing appropriate flexibility and options, 261 is great for a handful of customers, and I hope we're expanding it, but I think I hear more about some of the current rates that we do have and how limiting they are in some cases.
Well, we all have different customer bases, if you will, or constituents. And not to disparage, my constituents, and I talk to them on the front doors of their homes as well, they don't care generally, and I won't put a percentage, generally, they don't care where the power comes from. They don't care if it's got a carbon footprint or not. They care what the price of power is. And they certainly don't care to help facilitate or pay for programs that would provide a monthly rate rather than usage. Usage-based is the most fair, and they believe that. They also like the fact that rates are not increasing for 5 years. They're really solar. I've got one guy that mentions solar, and I know it's important to you folks, and it's important if it's an economic plus for OPPD. It's a choice a customer makes. It's a choice that we make to inform them. It's a personal choice. And I appreciate your input, and I appreciate what you're saying, but there's a whole different model out there that I'm involved in, that the people that I talk to want. And it's cheap power. That's all it is.
So let me just ask a question on that, Nick. You said usage-based is the best, that's what they're looking for, right? They want to be charged based on their consumption.
That's our model today.
Okay.
But I think if we transition to a flat rate for everybody, somebody's gonna have to pay for somebody else's power, right?
So isn't that part of what happened? And then aren't we transitioning that to a rate structure in some way?
We're still usage-based. Our rate structure is to deliver services, to get service to you, and all the background processes that happen. You still pay, everyone still pays usage, and that's the way this model is built, and I think it's the most fair.
Well, I agree with you. And, there's no hiding the fact that I didn't agree with the fixed structure.
Sure,
that's fine. I tend to think that flies in the face of the energy efficiency desires that we have to begin with.
But to create more attention on all this, we do have another strategic directive, and that's environmental stewardship,
We do.
where a lot of this is where we can also discuss that, which is good. In addition
Well,
to
it's not
rates
the
and
energy
costs.
efficiency, that's part of what.
And it's intermingled is the problem, that's where the tension is.
We've got energy efficiency in this strategic directive, I think we've got it in other strategic directives, so it feels like it sort of gets diluted to the bottom many of them.
In the interest of time, I don't want to move on. We have the governance committee to talk about kind of what we're doing. So, but this is a good discussion, and we need to have these discussions. There's going to be lots of differences. It's just the majority of the way this thing works, and that's where we're at today. And Whitaker's, and I don't mean this, I have to watch how I say this. When you've been through several of the rate processes or the structures, and you just kind of learn a little bit more about it, and you guys do a great job of trying to heck, you know a lot about this more than me, I'm sure, but figuring out how the whole thing's coming together, and then you gotta make those decisions to meet test needs. So I think as time goes on, and you learn more about these programs, you'll find they're pretty good, or if they aren't, you find they aren't, then you need to say, can we tweak it, and change it, and then bring it back again. It just takes a little time to go through there. That's why we're looking at these about once a year, because we don't change things 45 degrees. It's just hard to do. So I just throw that out there.
I do appreciate the fact that you mentioned the thing that you feel that the energy efficiency gets diluted because it's in so many different places. And that's, when we talk about the policies, I think we can, in the summary, that's definitely what we should look at. That is something that should be tweaked, that we combine that into one area, and that we should be thinking about.
Possibly.
And where that should, possibly.
Maybe.
Look, I think that's a good discussion.
Yeah.
And where can we put that? Does it belong in environmental stewardship, or does it belong in rates, or where exactly does it belong?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good
Yeah,
discussion.
and
that we should put.
I have no preconceived notions about what is or is not the right way to go on that, but
Yeah.
I feel like we.
And that's where Eric Douglas could help us with that, because he works with
Just
small.
quickly on the rate restructuring, my thought on the rate restructuring all along is that it is, if it's tweaked and put at a proper level, which I feel we're close to, it actually is a cost savings device to the ratepayer. I understand that some ratepayers have to pay a little more, some pay a little less, but the overall result of the rate restructuring, it is in the long run a reduction in rates overall, which I'm always in favor of. And I know we don't want to talk about this anymore, but I'd be glad to talk with you.
Yeah, well, for a certain class, right, as you said,
Right.
Well, and that's right there is the key. I mean, you gotta go convince 5 people. That's how this works, usually within reason. That those policies are good.
I'm not.
Just that's the way it works.
I don't know
You
intended
do
outcome.
convince people, because that's how you, that's it. I mean, if you wanna change things, you gotta get those votes and change them.
The rate restructuring, just to be really clear about it from the management perspective, the rate restructuring that we put in place a year or so ago was really meant about getting fixed and variable costs more closely aligned to where they occur. Very clear.
That has to be fair.
And the assumption was that the way we have historically done it and the way utilities have historically done it was the correct way to do that, right? So that was the assumption. And so the assumption is you're doing it the right way, now you're changing it, you're doing it the wrong way. And what we were trying to do was meet some of the other elements within this strategic directive, which was to assign cost where cost occurred. And if you remember, certainly the longer term board members may remember this, from a distribution transmission side, we could have went up to like $75 per customer, right? But that was not where the recommendation occurred at all. And so that is the fixed cost to operate the system regardless of where the energy occurs, because you have poles and meters and wires and substations that are attached to customers, however they use the energy. And so our perspective was, how do you more accurately try to fix, identify those costs, and assign those costs which is more reflective of how customers use them and where the costs are. That's all we were trying to do, is to balance that. And so this is one of those SDs that trying to balance so many different things. This SD, as we talked about from a comparable or competitive side, is there's a variety of ways to do it. What we tried to do was to not have two different ways to measure it. So we measured it based on the North Central, just the way our rating agencies look at a competitive threshold for us as, are we competitive within our region? And that's what they use from our financial sustainability strategic directive. And we thought it was important to match those up with our competitive rate strategic directive. Now, if that's not right, we have the opportunity to change it and move in a different direction. What we are trying to do is to create some consistency where you don't want to be driving in one area and then have a negative impact in another. So how do you balance that? And that's been the management team's kind of responsibility, is to try to balance, as well as the board in setting these, try to balance all of these different priorities. And I think we're having the conversation of, it can be difficult sometimes to begin to balance them. But the conversation and the deepness of it, I think, is valuable for us to have, and it gives the management team an opportunity for us to think about things that we may want to bring to the July 24th as part of that discussion and dialogue as well.
And that process took a year or two, so we're not going to solve it. So with that, we move on to system management. All right, thanks. System management, Rich, you want to? John?
We have met last Monday, and
Item number 6, go ahead.
Resolution number 6183, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors accepts the Strategic Directive ST2 Competitive Rates Monitoring Report in the form as set forth on Exhibit A, attached hereto and made a part thereof, and finds OPPD to be sufficiently in compliance with the policy as stated.
So moved.
Second. All right, Director Kavanaugh is Chairman of the Public Information Committee where this resided. You want to say a few?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, as Strategic Directive 2 deals primarily with our rate structures involving fairness and so forth. And this morning we, in detail, reviewed both the Strategic Directive itself as well as how the utility is performing in relation to that directive. And I'm confident that the OPPD is sufficiently in compliance with the policy as stated. Recommend approval. This is an annual review that needs to be done.
All right, any board member comments?
Sure, I'll make a comment. So I'm thankful. I agree that the strategic directive is being complied with as written. I do appreciate that in the presentation that we had this morning and in our long and detailed discussion that we are evaluating potential revisions come our meeting in July. And I look forward to that. I think it's important to have measures, not just for this, but for every strategic directive that we have. I'm a strong believer in the money ball for government as much as for baseball. So having data-driven decisions, I think, is important. And I look forward to that discussion. I think that's it.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah, I'll add a couple things. In all the strategic directives that we've reviewed since I've started, and there haven't been many yet, this is the one that I've struggled with the most to really see clearly clearly demonstrated information that we are complying. One of the questions that I had during our pre-committee meeting was, what's the definition of sufficiently complying? To which I got a good answer to really help me to do a little bit more discernment. And I'm not convinced that we are at this point. I tend to think that the sort of the next level down when it comes to compliance, taking reasonable and appropriate measures to comply, is a little bit more appropriate in this case. I don't think we're far off. Again, I think there's a big fat gray area there where maybe we are or we aren't. But in this case, again, this strategic directive, as we know, drives a lot of what we do. Almost everything that comes before us will affect the strategic directive in some way. So I agree with Rick's comments that I was excited about the depth of the conversation that we had earlier this morning. And I think there are a lot of different, there's an opportunity for us to enhance it in July, and I look forward to that conversation.
Very good.
I agree. It's also, as we said, when we first began this process of setting up these directives, we always said this is a very living document that, we're going to work with and look at different options and everything. And that's why we're having the July meeting with Eric Douglas as our facilitator. And I think he's going to help us with some options and get everybody's, do a survey, and hopefully we'll come in well organized so that we can use all of our discussion as good as possible with the help of Scott Foch and also you, Mrs. Tracy.
All right. Well, I think we had a great discussion. I think on the competitive rates, of course, one of the most important things we do. This one is shall establish a target rate 20% below the West North Central regional average. And then we have those principles to get to that. But as far as reaching that 20% below the regional average, we're well on our way, doing a great job at, the chart they showed at 12.9%. So I thought that was very good. But I think the discussion was great. Looking forward to it. There's always going to be differences of opinion on how we get to the rates. And I agree with Director Booty. It's one of the most important things we do. And there's so many moving parts to it. So I thought that was a good conversation. And I'm sure it's always in our focus. And we'll keep looking at these strategic directives. So, all right. Any public comments?
David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street. I listened, first of all, I want to thank you, of course, for having the strategic directives and working and spending all that time. I was troubled by some of the comments that I heard this morning, and I realize that you'll be discussing this later, but I want to publicly state what some of those concerns are. Thought was too focused on cost only, when you have environmentally sensitive as one of your mission, part of your mission statement. Encourage demand reduction and energy efficiency, I thought was lacking in how you define that, as was pointed out by some of the directors today. The fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory rates, I think, is fuzzy. I'll just cite my own personal right here with your new service charge. My latest statement, I have a service charge now of $20 a month. Soon that'll be $25. And my kilowatt usage was $21.92. So next year, my service costs will be more than what I actually use. I don't consider that to be fair, considering I entered energy efficiency. What troubled me the most was the implication by some directors that you are a business and that you are a for-profit business. You are not. You are a public power district and you are to serve the public. And to say that, well, if we tell people about energy efficient, then we won't make as much money is not in line with what public power is. Not only are you nonprofit, but you are a monopoly. So to me, it would be akin to which, by the way, hospitals aren't monopolies, but they don't say, let's try to have as many people get sick and injured as possible because we want to keep our business. That's not the way to run it. I was very offended by the statements about stating that you are a business and you're for profit. The environmentally sensitive part, let me just say you cited anecdotal information of what you've heard from your customers, but not your own surveys of when you presented to us that people would be willing to pay more for renewable energy
30 seconds.
and energy efficiency. So what I will close with is what business people have been saying all the way around. If you're going to compare yourself with a business, then let me give you this quote. Those businesses that are only talking about price are living 20 years in the past. the modern consumers are really much more willing to recognize quality, sustainability, and traceability. And I urge you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dave, I concur with what you said. And we're not a business, we're a special entity, and we're here for the welfare of the state, and it is a monopoly. And also, going back to 2 or 3 years ago, there was a stakeholder outreach that was very extensive, and I thought it was very well done. And it had that the ratepayers would like to see more renewable energy, and they put it into a framework where they said I would pay $0 to $9 more, $10 to $19 more, and there was it looked like the majority was in that they're willing to pay more for renewable energy. So I concur with you.
Director, just on that study, actually not, there's a break point. We should pass that around, Lisa. There was a study when we did this, and this is not for conversation, but we'll get it to you. Those breakpoints are very narrow, and then it changes dramatically. So just so we're all talking about the same thing, let's pass that around to the directors at least. So I don't know what study that was, but I remember when I was
It was the market research study.
yeah, this was a couple of years ago.
2014.
2014.
Okay, time flies. But anyway, if we get that to the directors so we don't have differences or arguments. Go ahead.
Alan Vivoka, 3719 Hamilton. I don't know how the vote's going to go on this yet, but I'd like you to keep in mind that you've got hardly any numbers for targets. Admittedly, I'm a data guy. I might like numbers more than other people do, but there's only one number in this directive, and you didn't make it. So just keep that in mind when you're voting on whether you're in compliance or if you've got something else you'd like to say about it. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else? Okay.
And again, this is a vote to determine if we're compliant with existing policy. We're not here to really debate the policy. As far as being able to put a number on something to see how well we're doing, there's certain things we do that you can assess by a score, by a number. There's other things that are basically philosophies that you can't really put a number on. And again, this is just to housekeeping thing, if you will, vote to determine that we're in a
Snapshot in time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this stuff has to do with the Directive 3 and 4, as far as pursuing the rate process and structure changes to reflect the cost of energy when it is used and other flexibility and options. We're not there yet because you don't have a fully functional AMI. Right now, we're only doing the pilot for the AMI, and that is on the way. And I think we have to continue to put pressure on that. After we get the AMI, we're in the next year. We discussed that. And 18 is when we're going to be talking about that, and that is when we would start discussing about these type of rates and the type of things that we need to include those structural changes as far as cost of energy and flexibility and options. So since we are at least on track with this AMI and doing a pilot study for it yet, I believe that we are in compliance right now because we're not there yet, but we're on our way. And I think that's what we have to look at. And with that, hopefully we'll get more data that we'll be able to go from there.
And Director McGuire, just for the public of the webcast or whatever we're doing, that's an advanced metering infrastructure is what AMI is. We're doing a pilot study to see where we're at. That is no guarantee we're going to do that. That's just a study. Then we'll get the results. And the board will have to make a decision whether we go that route or not. So there's a lot of things in play, and like I say, a lot of good conversations, differences of opinion, and that's a good thing. So
perhaps annual review might be a little too quick. I don't know. I realize it's nice.
That'd be a good
round number once a year.
That'd be a good one to discuss probably in July too. So.
Yeah.
All right. Any other last comments? Let's see. Vote, Kim.
Barrett,
Abstain?
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Gay,
Yes.
Hurley,
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes.
Mines,
Yes.
Moody,
No.
Yoder,
No.
All righty. Passes. Item number 7 is
Cam, you wanna go to that one?
I'm gonna just say that the last vote was 5 pass, 1 abstain, and 2 noes, just so that's on the record.
That one was